In the summer of 2006, Emily and Cara set off on the Appalachian Trail with bright backpacks and bigger dreams. By the next day, their car was still at the trailhead, food untouched inside, and the girls were gone. For 5 years, families begged for answers as rumors twisted into legend. Then, in 2008, a camper stumbled upon a collapsed lean-to deep in the woods. Beneath the soil lay a yellow scrap of fabric, a rusted backpack, and bones that told a story no one wanted to believe. What he uncovered dragged the case out of silence and revealed a truth more chilling than anyone imagined. Before we go any further, if this is your first time here, we'd love for you to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Your support means the world and helps us bring you even more powerful stories. Stick with us until the end. And if this mystery moves you, share your thoughts in the comments and pass it along to a friend. Want to help us decide the next story? Vote below and subscribe so you don't miss it. Now, let's begin. Summer of 2003, the Appalachian Trail stretched like a green artery across the eastern United States, pulling hikers from cities and small towns into its vast, wild silence. On a bright June morning, 2 teenage girls, Emily, 17, and Cara, 16, stood at a trailhead in Virginia, their backpacks snug against their shoulders, faces flushed with excitement. Emily was the steady one. Tall, dark hair pulled back in a messy braid. A small notebook tucked into her side pocket where she liked to jot down what she saw. Cara was all restless energy, tugging at her yellow windbreaker, bouncing on the balls of her feet as if the path itself was daring her to move faster. Their parents stood nearby, watching with that mix of pride and unease. "Be careful. Stick to the trail," Emily's father called. Cara waved him off with a grin. "What's up, Dad?" "Well, be fine." Her mother forced a laugh, but adjusted the strap of Cara's pack anyway, fingers lingering a little too long. A few hikers passed them, nodding as they started up the path. The girls' laughter carried into the trees, light and careless, until the dense forest swallowed it. Neighbors later recalled seeing them days earlier, mapping out the hike at a cafe, heads bent close over a guidebook. One older woman whispered to a friend as she stirred her tea. "2 girls alone in those woods? Wow, that's risky." The friend shrugged. "They'll be fine. Kids do it all the time." But the way her voice trailed off betrayed doubt. The Appalachian Trail was alive that morning with the scent of pine and damp earth. Sunlight poured through the canopy in shifting patterns. The girls paused for photos. Emily holding up a peace sign. Cara squinting into the light. To anyone passing, they looked like just another pair of teenagers chasing summer freedom. No one knew it would be the last time they'd be seen alive. The first few miles felt like adventure. The air was thick with the smell of damp soil. Cicadas droning in the background like a soundtrack only the forest knew. Emily adjusted the straps of her pack, jotting quick notes in her little notebook. Mile marker 2. Wildflowers. Cara humming again. Cara laughed when she caught her brushing a strand of hair from her face. "You're making this sound like some epic quest." They weren't alone on the trail. Other hikers remembered them clearly later. A middle-aged couple saw them by a stream, shoes off, splashing cold water over their faces. 2 girls full of life, the man recalled. Another hiker, pushing uphill with trekking poles, overheard Cara singing off-key. Emily groaning at her, but smiling anyway. The Appalachian swallowed them deeper by the hour. Trees stretched taller, light filtered green, and the hum of civilization faded until there was only bird song and the creak of their packs. At one rest point, Emily sat quietly on a log, eyes tracing the terrain. Ca threw a stick like a spear, laughing when it cracked against a rock. "Race you to the next marker," she yelled, darting off. By late afternoon, they were spotted one last time near a shelter used by thru hikers. They shared snacks with two college kids who later described them as quote happy. Maybe a little tired, but fine. Emily had her notebook out again. Cara traded granola bars, joking about how she hated raisins. It was nothing remarkable, just small talk in the woods. And then the trail bent away, the girls moving past the shelter, their voices fading. The path swallowed them whole. When the sun dipped below the ridges, hikers at the shelter assumed the girls had made camp further down, but no one saw them again. By Monday morning, the parents expected a call. Emily was always the responsible one. She'd promised to phone home once they reached their campsite, but the line never rang. At first, the families told themselves it was nothing. Spotty signal. Maybe the girls were just caught up in the adventure. But by Tuesday, unease turned into dread. Their car was still parked at the trailhead. Maps folded neatly in the glove box, water bottles in the cup holders. Inside, a grocery bag with snacks sat untouched like they planned to return soon. But the trailhead itself was quiet, only a ranger's truck idling nearby. The families filed a missing persons report. Within hours, officers and rangers spread across the first few miles of the path. Their boots crunched over pine needles. Radios crackled with updates, but the woods gave nothing back. At one point, a ranger found the remains of a small campfire near a creek. Ashes faintly warm, a candy wrapper tucked in the dirt. Was it theirs? No one could say. By evening, volunteers poured in. Flashlights cut through the dark. Dogs barked into the trees. Voices shouted the girls' names until hoarse. Still no reply. The forest held its silence like a secret. At home, neighbors gathered in kitchens and on porches. One woman whispered, "Two girls alone out there. Was up with letting them go." Another sighed, stirring her tea. "Wow, like parents can lock them in the house forever." The words weren't cruel, but they stung all the same. By the second night, fear hung over the trail. Families huddled together at the ranger station, staring at maps spread across tables. Every red circle marking where teams had searched. Each circle meant nothing found. Emily and Cara had vanished into the wilderness, and the Appalachian wasn't giving them back. By the third day, the search exploded into one of the largest operations the county had seen. Lines of volunteers stretched across the ridges, walking shoulder to shoulder through waist-high ferns. Search dogs darted through the undergrowth, handlers straining to keep up as the hounds caught faint traces that fizzled into nothing. Helicopters thumped overhead, their spotlights sweeping across valleys like restless eyes. Every hour brought new reports. A set of footprints near a stream turned out to be from another hiker. A torn water bottle in the brush, too weathered to be recent. Even a scrap of yellow fabric sparked hope until someone admitted they'd dropped part of a raincoat weeks earlier. Each lead collapsed, hope rising and crashing like waves. Rangers worked from sunup to sundown. Maps pinned across the walls of the ranger station. Red ink circling areas already combed. "It's like the woods swallowed them whole," one officer muttered, running a tired hand through his hair. Another shook his head, adding, "Nah, people leave traces. We're just not looking in the right spot." Back in town, the tension simmered. At a diner counter, two men debated over black coffee. "What's up with those kids? They must have gone off trail," one said. His friend snorted. "Wow, like two girls can just vanish. Something else happened." The words floated, carried by the clink of silverware, repeated in hushed tones across the community. By the end of the first week, the official word was bleak. No clothing, no gear, no sign of struggle. It was as if Emily and Cara had stepped off the trail and into thin air. The search crews thinned. Volunteers returned to jobs and families, and helicopters were grounded. But for the parents, the search never really stopped. Maps stayed on their kitchen tables. Phones never left their pockets. Every ring felt like it could be the call that brought the girls home. The forest, though, remained silent. With no clues, no remains, and no clear direction. The vacuum filled itself with theories. By midsummer, the case wasn't just a search effort. It was a wildfire of speculation. Some swore the girls had been abducted. Hikers claimed they saw a lone man shadowing the trail days before, tall and wiry, with a dark cap pulled low. No one could agree on his face, but in retellings, he became the phantom predator of the Appalachian. Others pointed to trafficking rings, whispering that the girls were taken off the trail and sold into silence. Another group of voices pushed a different narrative. The girls ran away. At the grocery store, a clerk muttered to a customer, "Teenagers do crazy stuff. Maybe they just didn't want to come back." The woman shook her head, her voice dropping. "Wow, you don't leave your car, your food, your whole life behind. Something happened." Still others blamed the land itself. Hunters said mountain lions prowled those woods. One ranger dismissed it. "If it was an animal, we'd have found remains." Locals leaned in darker. Ghost stories. Curses of the Appalachian. Tales of hikers lured off path by voices only they could hear. The gossip cut deepest at church. Emily's mother overheard two women in the pew behind her. Her parents should have never let them go alone. Yeah, but maybe there's more to it. Families hide things. The whispers burned hotter than any silence. The families clung to their daughter's innocence, plastering photos across every telephone pole, holding vigils where prayers cracked into sobs. But rumors traveled faster than faith. The mystery of Emily and Cara became everyone's story. Reshaped to fit fear, blame, or legend. And all the while, the trail stayed quiet, holding on to its secret. By the end of that first year, the search had thinned to nothing but paper. The trail still hummed with life. Hikers, campers, families. But for Emily and Cara, it was as if the earth itself had closed around them. The posters at gas stations faded in the sun, the ink bleeding until their smiles looked like shadows. Detectives shuffled the case file between desks. Each new officer circled the same notes, reread the same witness statements, then quietly set it aside. Without fresh leads, it was labeled what no family ever wants to hear. Cold birthdays passed in silence. Emily's notebook stayed on her nightstand, her handwriting frozen midsummer. Cara's yellow windbreaker hung behind her bedroom door, still smelling faintly of the woods. Their parents left the rooms untouched, like museums to lives paused mid-sentence. The community adapted, too. At first, people avoided the subject altogether, but slowly their names slipped into casual phrases. At a diner, one man muttered, "Kids vanish out there all the time." Another replied, "What's up with saying that?" Two girls, 5 years gone, and nothing. That's not normal. Their words floated, then dissolved, leaving only the scrape of cutlery and the clink of mugs. For hikers, the story grew into cautionary tale. Some swore that in the misty mornings, if you stopped long enough, you could hear laughter carried on the wind. Others left tokens at certain bends, ribbons, bracelets, scraps of cloth, tiny memorials along the trail. The official search had ended, but for the families, the waiting never did. Every phone call sent a jolt through their bodies. Every knock on the door made their hearts stumble, and every year that passed felt like a knife, because silence, in some ways, is crueler than truth. By the third year, the case had drifted from headlines into whispers. Emily and Cara weren't just missing girls anymore. They were becoming part of the folklore stitched into the Appalachian itself. Hikers passing through certain bends of the trail left trinkets, bracelets, coins, even scraps of paper with prayers scribbled on them. Some swore they heard giggling in the trees when the fog rolled low, like the sound of teenagers hiding just out of sight. Others claimed to see flashes of yellow fabric through the brush, only to find nothing when they pushed closer. Campfire stories spread fastest. College hikers told each other that if you set camp near mile marker 47, you might wake to footsteps circling your tent. An older ranger admitted to hearing voices on night patrols, soft, overlapping, like girls whispering in the dark. He laughed it off, but the way he rubbed the back of his neck gave him away. In town, the legends grew sharper. At the diner, a man leaned close to his buddy over coffee. "What's up with those girls? Folks say they're still out there." The friend raised an eyebrow, smirking. "Wow. If they are, then the mountain's keeping them." Neither laughed. The families hated the stories, but couldn't escape them. Emily's father once overheard teens daring each other to hike the haunted mile. He clenched his fists, jaw tight, but said nothing. Cara's mother stopped going to church after catching two women whispering behind her pew. Maybe the trail wanted them. The Appalachian had swallowed the truth whole, and now it was spitting back myths. For strangers, the stories were thrilling. For the families, they were salt in a wound. And still, no one knew what had really happened. 5 years after Emily and Cara vanished, the trail had almost moved on without them. New hikers came. New stories unfolded. But in the summer of 2008, one man unknowingly stepped straight into their chapter. His name was Tom Weaver, a 42-year-old weekend camper who preferred the quieter sections of the Appalachian. He wasn't chasing legends, just solitude. With a canvas pack strapped to his back and a thermos of coffee swinging at his side, he set out along a remote spur trail far from the busy stretches where most travelers stayed. By late afternoon, the woods thickened. The air grew damp, heavy with the smell of moss and wet bark. Tom paused at a clearing, wiping sweat from his brow, adjusting the straps digging into his shoulders. He noticed how still it was. No wind, no birds, just the crunch of his boots. He pitched his tent near an old lean-to, half collapsed and covered in ivy. As the fire crackled, Tom caught himself glancing toward the tree, feeling watched. Though the forest seemed empty, he muttered half laughing, "What's up with this place? Gives me the creeps." That night, while gathering wood, his boot snagged on something buried under leaves. He crouched, brushing the dirt away. What he saw wasn't trash left behind by hikers. It was a fragment of fabric, sun-bleached, but unmistakably bright yellow. Tom froze. The stories he'd brushed off in town drifted back. The two teenage girls, gone without a trace. The color of Ka's windbreaker. Suddenly, the silence around him wasn't peaceful anymore. It felt like the forest was holding its breath. And deep down, Tom knew he hadn't just stumbled on litter. He had stepped into someone else's unfinished story. Tom knelt in the dirt, fingers trembling as he lifted the scrap of yellow fabric. It was frayed at the edges, stiff with age, but the color punched through the soil like a memory that refused to fade. His first thought was simple. This is Cara's jacket. He'd never met the girl, but he'd seen her face and that bright windbreaker on the faded posters that still lingered in gas stations along the highway. He told himself it could be coincidence. Maybe just an old raincoat tossed aside years ago. But when he pulled at the soil, his hand struck something harder. Metal. Brushing away the dirt, he uncovered a rusted zipper attached to a collapsed backpack. Inside, he found what was left of a journal. The pages warped and stuck together, ink bleeding into blue smudges. On the first salvageable sheet, faint words still clung. Mile 47. We're scared. Tom staggered back, heart hammering. He dropped the journal, wiping his hands on his pants as if the ink itself burned. The fire back at his camp felt too far, the shadows too close. Gathering his nerve, he pressed deeper, clearing the ivy around the lean-to. That's when he saw them. Bones pale against the black soil, a rib cage half buried, a femur jutting like driftwood from the earth. Nearby lay a second set, smaller, tangled in decayed fabric. His breath caught. Emily and Cara had not left the Appalachian. They had been here all along. Tom stumbled back into the clearing, gasping into the heavy night air. "Oh God," he muttered, voice shaking. "Wow, I just found them." And for the first time in 5 years, the Appalachian Trail whispered back its secret. By morning, Tom hiked back down the trail in a daze, clutching the warped journal in a plastic bag. At the ranger station, his words tumbled out, I think I found them." Within hours, the Appalachian Trail swarmed with law enforcement the way it had 5 years earlier. Only this time, they weren't searching. They were excavating. Agents marked the lean-to with bright tape, cameras flashing as evidence text knelt over the soil. Shovels moved carefully, inch by inch, pulling back the earth that had hidden Emily and Cara. Personal items emerged first. The corroded frame of Emily's glasses, a pair of hiking boots collapsed inward. The remnants of Cara's yellow windbreaker. The journal, though damaged, was confirmed as Emily's, her neat handwriting slowly fading into frantic scrolls. Reporters swarmed the site as news broke. Remains found in missing hiker's case. Helicopters circled overhead again, just as they had years before. But this time, the story had weight. Families were called to the station. Emily's mother collapsed into her husband's arms when she heard whispering. They were so close all this time. Investigators pieced together the evidence. No signs of animal attack, no scattered remains dragged by predators. Instead, the bones suggested the girls had died together, huddled under the lean-to. Forensics hinted at dehydration, starvation, possibly even injury. But one note in the journal chilled them most. "We thought someone was following us." Rumors reignited instantly. At a diner in town, one man leaned over his coffee. "What's up with that? You think someone chased them?" His friend shook his head, frowning. "Wow. Or maybe the woods just took them." For the FBI, it was no longer a mystery of where. It was now a question of how the trail had given the girls back, but not the whole truth. Forensic teams spent weeks piecing together the story from what the trail had preserved. The bones revealed no blunt trauma, no clean weapon marks, nothing that screamed murder, but the placement told its own tale. The girls had died close together, side by side beneath the lean-to as if clinging to each other in their final hours. Emily's journal became the key. Though water damaged, fragments of her writing survived. Early entries described the hike, mile markers, bird song, silly jokes Cara made. But as the pages turned, the tone shifted. "We keep hearing footsteps." One line read, shaky, and rushed. Another note scrolled in the margins. "Someone is out there." The final page trailed into scribbles. The words, "We're cold," barely legible through smeared ink. The FBI couldn't confirm foul play, but they couldn't rule it out either. If someone had stalked them, they left no trace beyond fear pressed into Emily's handwriting. Some agents leaned toward misadventure. The girls wandered off trail, got lost, and succumbed to exposure. Others whispered darker possibilities. Someone herded them there, left them to die slowly. Theories flared again in town. At the grocery store, 2 women stood whispering by the fruit bins. "What's up with that journal? Sounds like someone hunted them." The other shook her head, eyes wide. "Wow. Or maybe they panicked and imagined it." Rumors filled the gaps. Truth wouldn't. For the families, the horror wasn't in the theories. It was in the reality. Their daughters hadn't vanished into thin air. They had suffered alone in the woods, waiting for help that never came. The Appalachian Trail had held them for 5 long years. And when it finally gave them back, the story it told was crueler than silence. When the remains were confirmed as Emily and Cara, the news spread like wildfire. Vigils lined the trailhead. Candles flickering against the summer air. Photographs pinned to trees. Ribbons tied to mile markers. Hikers passing through left offerings. Granola bars. Bracelets. Scraps of fabric. Small tokens to honor the girls who never made it home. For the families, closure was both a gift and a wound. Emily's father said softly, "At least we can bring her home now." Cara's mother shook her head, clutching the yellow fabric, whispering, "She was out there all this time." The answers they long begged for had arrived, but they came wrapped in horror. In town, the legend cemented. Locals told the story of 2 girls who disappeared on Easter break. Their laughter swallowed by the Appalachian. Their final words written in a ruined journal. Around campfires, hikers repeated it as warning. The trail is beautiful, but it never forgets. And so, Emily and Cara's names became part of its history. An echo carried in the trees. A reminder that sometimes the wilderness keeps its secrets too long.